now let's get into this. This has been a topic that I've had for a long time in the queue, and Heidi kept reminding me to kind of bring it up, and I'm going to bring it up now. So I think it's kind of irrelevant. So, Scott, this kind of ties into the vacation rental laws that are going on Oahu. It also goes into there's a lot of laws moving in Maui to control or limit vacation rentals. I know there's all kinds of stuff kind of happening on the Big Island as well. There's a lot of movement going on with vacation rentals and regulations and increasing taxes and things of that nature. It's been all over the place. COVID started all that. So there's this new thing, and I kind of wanted to get your folks' a take on this, which is this. There's this idea called co-ownership. I don't know precisely what it is, but my understanding about it is that it's not like a time. It's like a timeshare, but it's not. It's like you have a legal structure where several people own a home. So you co-own a home instead of one person owning that home. Several people own that home. It's like timeshare, but it's not. It's not timeshare. And there's a concern here that first was brought up on Maui that this co-ownership may skip short-term vacation rental laws because you're an owner. You're not a vacationer. You're an owner, but your slice of this house may be less than 30 days. And apparently, there are these co-ownership, these co-owned homes are coming up in luxury neighborhoods. And of course, luxury neighborhoods, they were people who bought these homes and luxury neighborhoods bought them because they wanted a luxury home in a big private gated community. They didn't want to be near a visitor destination. They didn't want to be near a resort place. But now what's happening is that some of these co-owned homes, these co-ownership homes are becoming like vacation rentals. So they're becoming like resorts. So there's all kinds of touristy things and people don't like that. So that's the background. That's the setup. Why don't we go to Heidi first and then Scott and then Dylan? Uh, if you caught anything about this co-ownership thing, do you see this going anywhere? Is there kind of some potential problems that you see? Heidi, what's your take on this?
Well, I see Picasso is shared ownership of luxury homes, and I kind of see it as an outgrowth just in general of the sharing economy, and I can see how this can be very attractive for people that are looking to own that $5 million house but only want to spend 1 million. Co-ownership of homes and properties, I mean, that's been going on for a long time, but I think what's different about Picasso is they're one company that's managing it and organizing it and marketing it this way, which makes it a little bit different. And there's concerns on a couple different sides. I mean, their entree into the Maui market comes at a very politically sensitive time when prices of housing is very high. I mean, the county would like to increase affordable housing. And also, if you watched our show about property taxes, I mean, property tax structure on Maui is designed to tax the highest rates to timeshare and short-term rentals, and we have very low tax rates for full-time residents and other types of properties. So, like with the Picasso model, they'd be paying less property tax than maybe a short-term rental or timeshare. So that could perhaps be issue. But the other issue is for, as Peter mentioned, it's for the people actually living in these communities that they don't want people constantly coming and going. And for new owners thinking of buying in a community and existing owners in a community, if there's an HOA, they're trying to change their bylaws and figure out how to prevent this kind of thing. I mean, my opinion is if Picasso tried to do this in an area that allowed vacation rentals, they'd be met maybe more welcome than in a residential condominium area. So I don't know. I could go on about this, but
Well, I think it's gonna. I'm gonna give Dylan the cue to talk about one of his favorite topics of unintended consequences. So we may see one of those. But Scott, why don't you? It's been going on. Heidi mentioned it's been going on for a while. This co-ownership idea. Do you have anything? Might this be something that's going to kind of erupt on Oahu, especially with this 90-day short-term vacation rental thing? What's your take?
I, I'm not that impressed with it. I mean, it's Fractional ownership is effectively what it was called 10, 12 years ago, never took off. And there's a whole host of reasons. So what Picasso's doing is they will you can have a maximum of 8 owners owning the property, and they put it into an LLC, so you own a portion of that LLC, whether you own 1/8 or you purchase 2 portions of it. So then you're dividing up the usage time basically by that. And Picasso can manage it, and you can set dates that you come and visit. It's not going to skirt the short-term vacation rental laws, because if you go, these are homeowners that own it, so that's not a short-term vacation rental if you own it, right? So forget that. They would have to put it on, advertise it in some kind of way for it to become a short-term vacation rental, and then city and county will come down on them at that point. And I know there's been a concern for, people buying up inventory. Well, hey, if you get 5 or if you get 8 people buying one home rather than 8 people buying 8 homes, guess what? They're leaving inventory for other people. So, hey, have at it.
That's a benefit, right?
You're shrinking the buyer pool. The biggest thing, the biggest reason I don't see this taking off, and it hasn't before, first of all, it's an LLC. So financing components for it get to be complex. They're not easy. You're 1/8 owner, let's call it. And then, okay, does everybody agree? You have to vote on things as a group. Do you really want to do that, right? Hey, I don't like the decor. It's looking a little run down. Let's change it. Now you got to get 8 people to all agree. And then if you want to go and sell it, okay, now you've got a real challenge on your hand, because now you're putting it on the market. Yes, it looks attractive on the price, but somebody knows they're buying this thing, a portion of this thing, usage time, to come in with a group of people. And I looked online, there is one fractional in Hawaii Kai right now that's on the market for 400 and some thousand. It's a condo. Condo market right now, days on market is average is 10 days. This thing's been on the market over 200 days. So what's your buyer demand for something like that?
Looks pretty low. And it's funny what you said that, Scott, because Paul had popped this on the comments right before you, tongue in cheek, of course. Luckily, co-owners of their property always get along, always agree on renovations, always want to sell at the same time. So that's a really good point.
So I don't see it taking off because of the complexity of something like that, especially when you don't know each other and you're 8 owners having to navigate through something. I mean, every one of my LLCs that I put together for the developments, and I have people come in and give me money, my LLC says I control everything. Nobody has a say. And there's a reason for it, because I need that thing to go smooth, and I need to be the decision maker in it. So.
You can't have 8 deciders. Could you imagine that, Scott? If you had to deal with 8, oh my God, it's a pain as it is. Hey, I just want to kind of give a quick shout to Colleen and to Norm, and now to Andre. Got your questions? We'll be popping them up shortly. I want to get through this topic here with Dylan. Give me your unintended consequence, or whatever comes to your mind about this topic, Dylan.
Well, the first thing I'd like to context-wise mention is, this is not a new concept, especially in Hawaii. In Hawaii, we have a term called hui, right? It means like group. And that's been a business kind of strategy, a land ownership strategy for a long time. And it's people coming together into a group and doing something together. So it's not necessarily a foreign idea. It's definitely a new and innovative idea. And let's not forget who's behind this, right? Spencer Ranscroft is the founder of Picasa, and he was the CEO of Zillow for many, many years, and an executive at Zillow for many, many years. And so these aren't stupid people, right? I mean, these people know the real estate market. They're disruptors in the real estate market. They're very smart people involved in this. And so but that's not to say that everything Zillow and these different disruptors have done has been successful. I mean, they failed many times too. You always forget about the failures and you see the successes. But I somewhat disagree. I think there is buyer demand for it. I've been in contact with many people they haven't started on the Big Island yet, but they're asking me about it and say, well, do you know when this is coming? It's something we're interested in, because there are people who want a $5 million vacation home for $1 million, and they're doing that anyway, right? They're coming here and doing Airbnbs for a month or two and paying for a month or two of ownership to use a property, and they see the value in having some equity in it long term and having more control. So I think definitely there's it's interesting times to come, but in like Heidi said, the sharing economy that we're in, right? People are okay with sharing cars and sharing rooms in their homes. I mean, it's maybe a cultural thing with the younger generations where this becomes more of it's more efficient, right? It's more efficient to own a part of something and get to benefit from its maximum value when you're not going to use it all the time. I mean, I think about that all the time, like how much wasted money we have in clothes and things that we have around our house that we use once a month, once every other month. I mean, there's tons and tons of those examples. And one of the unintended consequences here, right, is these people that live in these luxury neighborhoods. If you try and put in CC&Rs and rules that limit who can come and go and how many people you can have, what does that mean for your own house, right? Can you not have friends over every month now? Can you not rent it out to you let your kids stay there in the guest home different times of the year? You're going to create a war. When you create rules, you create a war amongst the rules. And it's one of those attitudes where, I have my house and I don't want anything to change. But I want to be able to do whatever I want to do at my house, but I don't want you to be able to do whatever you want to do at your house. And so we're going to try and implement rules. And I can just see that turning into an enormous mess because, you just imagine how that goes. So
it's going to be interesting to kind of see where this goes. This is, I think, as Heidi said, it is I believe a reflection of the sort of the sharing economy. Scott's points are also good too. I mean, and the numbers speak for themselves. 200 days on the market versus 10. That tells you something. But yet these people are they're Zillow execs, so they're not stupid. They know the market. So
and think about it's just another vehicle. There's been real estate investment trusts for many, many years. That's been a real estate investment vehicle and tool for many, many years, which is just basically people putting money into a trust that buys real estate and lets it appreciate, or buys commercial property and draws dividends off of it. So it's just another foray into that. It's the next step in those types of ideas. Yeah. And I don't know, Peter, if you remember, we talked about this years ago, maybe 3 years ago, when kind of blockchain became a big thing, because everybody says, I had this idea before it became a thing, right? But I literally, I had this idea about, there was a big piece of property, like a 200-acre piece of property.
I remember.
And I had a bunch of friends, and we were like, man, we need to figure out a vehicle where we can all put in 50 grand and buy this thing, because we're not going to use the 200 acres up in the mountain every day. We could come up with an agreement, and you do a drawing for who uses it on what weekends and what long weekends, and you could figure this thing out where you'd have access to hunting land and places to ride your horses and your four-wheeler. And, we could all be basically a large ranch owner, but not have to own the entire ranch or the entire ownership of the ranch, because it's not affordable to most folks that would be interested in that. So anyway, I think it's a very interesting idea. I'd like to see it more for things like vehicles like that, like buying beach property or stuff to preserve that local families can have, that they wouldn't normally be able to afford but could have access to and be able to preserve into the long term.
Thank you, Dylan, for reminding me about that. That was a very fun time. I mean, so gang, what the discussion was.
I went down a deep rabbit hole. I had documents written up and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Well, so I didn't go quite down, because I went down the technical rabbit hole, right? Because I was when Dylan mentioned that, I thought, oh man, you could use blockchain technology, the technology that powers Bitcoin, for example, Bitcoin and Ethereum. You could create a blockchain where people could buy a piece of that property for $100, buy $100 worth. You wouldn't have to put in $500,000 worth or a big number. You could put in a teeny tiny number and still own, 1/1000th, 1/1,000,000th of the property. But anyway, that was.
And if you think about it, that could be an awesome vehicle for preservation of important property, community gardens, because we always rely on the government to go and buy open space and stuff, and we want the government to spend the money. But what if there's 1,000 citizens that want to get together and spend a couple $1,000s and buy a piece of property to do a community benefit program or something like that, or buy it for the Humane Society, right, to have a facility on. I mean, there's lots of ideas where you could come up with stuff that would be beneficial, and you don't have to rely on the county who's going to buy it and then neglect it, and it's going to become an eyesore.
Right,
So,
Scott, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, they're doing that on the Big Island with where you can pay, it's like a certain amount of money, and you can buy, basically you're buying a koa tree and they're planting it on lands to try to basically replenish the koa tree and do it in a sustainable way. I know they're doing that already. The one way I see this concept being able to take legs is the fact that who's behind it, big money, reputation. So there's a comfort factor that a bigger company gets involved in this, and you can have some of that safety, that some of the complexities to this that would not be as appealing, where you can't control everything, you have to have some kind of say with other people. They could come in and bring the size and scale of that kind of company to smooth out some of that, and then I could see it definitely having some legs.
Gang, you're all watching the genesis of another startup idea right before your eyes. We're coming up with something. Hey, so I got a question for you all. So for what do you folks think if there was a way for you to spend a small amount of money, and let's say $100 minimum, and with the $100 you would actually own a piece of property. So Scott, it's not quite like buying a koa tree because you can't turn around and sell that koa tree later. So you'd actually buy a piece of land, and let's say it's preservation land or whatever, for $100, and that would be, you would get some kind of a title that you could then later sell that if it ever appreciated. It would, it obviously would appreciate that, what, $110 or $120, but it would be a piece of property that you would own. Is that something that you would that what does that make you think about that? Go ahead, Scott.
It's called the cohort compound.
The cohort compound. The cohort compound. Love it. Oh yeah, the Islander Ohana cohort compound. Oh man. Okay.